the ones who fight, and we're aiming for you. When the troops are ammo, we're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing. We're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. Locked and loaded, the troops are ammo. We're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing. We're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. We don't back down, we stand our ground in the doghouse, where the real are found. No change, no fear, just pure aggression. We're here to win, no second guessing. No second guessing. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. We don't back down, we stand our ground in the doghouse, where the real are found. No chains, no fear, just pure aggression. We're here to win, no second guessing. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. Where the strong survive, we're tearing down the walls, no compromise, no filter, no mercy, just the cold hard truth. We're the ones who bite, and we're waiting for you. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise, no filter, no mercy, just the cold hard truth. We're the ones who bite, and we're waiting for you. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just the cold hard truth. We're the ones who fight, and we're ready for you. Locked and loaded, the truth's our ammo. We're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing, we're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. Locked and loaded, the truth's our ammo. We're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing, we're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. No running, no bluffing, no running. No running, no running, no running. We don't back down, we stand our ground in the doghouse, where the real are found. No change, no fear, just pure aggression. We're here to win, no second guessing. No second guessing. This is the doghouse, time to face the sound. Welcome to the doghouse, where the strong survive. We're tearing down the walls, no compromise. No filter, no mercy, just the cold hard truth. We're the ones who fight, and we're ready for you. When the troops are ammo, we're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing, we're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. Locked and loaded, the troops are ammo. We're breaking down the doors, no more shadows in the doghouse. It's all or nothing, we're here to fight, no bluffing, no running. We don't back.
All right, Ty, can you hear me?
Yep.
All righty. I'm going to turn off my push to talk here. All right, guys, welcome in to the Political Compass. We are live in action, ready to go. It has been absolutely insane kind of like past couple of hours. If you're coming in here from the TikTok live stream, welcome on in. Thank you for tuning in. Guys, if you're coming in here from Twitter, super excited, guys. I've been absolutely doing amazing on Twitter. But it's been awesome. We are jumping straight into it. I'm running 15 minutes behind. I was having a conversation about some wild conspiracy theories about Kamala's family origins and family trees. It was quite the interesting thing. But again, if you want to watch that, you kind of have to go to the TikTok live streams to watch them. You can't I can't show them unless I upload them. Okay. And I might actually upload them crazy enough to YouTube. I might be crazy enough to do that. But anyways, thank you for everyone who tuned in. If you are on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. This is the Political Compass Show. We will have more people coming in. I do intend to invite more people outside of the Twitch bubble, so look out for that. I do want to draw in some more people from other platforms, and I'm getting to the point where I think I'll be able to do just that. So if you're on Twitter and you have, someone I've been communicating with, just be on the lookout. I might actually throw you a invitation. But anyways, this show is called the Political Compass Show. What we seek to do is have reasonable conversations with reasonable people. Okay. And every week you're going to see some new guests. You might have 5 guests. You might have 2 guests. You might have 1 guest. But what we try to do is we try to bring in people from all sides of the political aisle, and we try to have reasonable conversations. This isn't designed to be a debate panel. This isn't designed to be blood sports, but look, a little spice is a little nice. And that's kind of our motto here is, look, we're going to disagree. All right. And a little heated conversation is not a big deal. But tonight we have a few interesting topics to talk about. We will be having possibly another guest come in a little later. It's a little dry today. It's just me and Ty, but that's okay. Me and him have a whole slew of conversations I think we can have, and I'm looking forward to it. We will be covering some topics such as SpaceX's new test flight. Are we going to Mars? We'll find out. The newest jobs report, we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to also be talking about the marijuana use in Florida. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. Don't know if I'm allowed to say that. And if I did, oh, well, I'm sorry. I won't say it again.
You're good.
The other thing we may get to, we only have an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes, but we're going to possibly cover as well is the state of the economy or the state of the election, right? So without further ado, we've already wasted enough time. It's already now 7:18. Let's go ahead and let's jump straight into it. Ty, let the audience know where you stand politically and kind of give your first intro as to the SpaceX topic.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? My name is Tiberius D. I am politically interesting to some people, but most people just hate everything I have to say because I don't fit it very nicely into anyone's political spectrum. I'm a dude from Southwest Indiana. I grew up from a family of farmers, but I also went to college. I tend to I went for economics, political science, so I just tend to piss in everybody's Cheerios. I generally care about politics, but anymore when it comes to talking about it on this internet space, I can have a real conversation with people like Doghouse, but 9 times out of 10, I'm here to politically shitpost because we don't have high-minded politics in the flavor of the Newsroom or the West Wing. We have politics in the flavor of what's that show again? Yeah, Parks and Recreation. That's our politics now, and I hate it. I hate it with every fiber of my being. So I'm learning to not give a shit, and so this is one of the few moments where I can actually talk real politics and have something that's concrete. So yeah, great to see my good friend Doghouse here. Can't wait to go down to Texas to see him. Probably going to be coming up here in that first week of March, last week of February. But yeah, good to see you, pal. Great to be here. Hope we get some more guests.
Yeah, we will. We're working on it, guys. I'm telling you guys, just keep an eye out. I'm realizing that I got to kind of jump out a little bit of my Twitch bubble and start inviting other guests, and we will be doing that. Okay, I promise. Yeah, guys. So if you're not familiar with me, and this is your first time seeing the Political Compass, I am the Doghouse Show. I am the main host on this show. I am a former conservative who turned liberal, mainly because I was kicked out of the Republican Party, flat out, point in blank period. And so I decided that I am now voting for Kamala Harris. I think that Kamala Harris is our best chance at putting, it's interesting, and I'm going off, but that's okay. We're going to go off, King. Okay. That's what we're going to do. Okay. Snap your fingers for poetry fingers. What I want to mention is that I think for me, guys, is I have seen far too often people sit there and go, I'm just going to vote independent. I'm not going to, I'm just going to essentially throw away my vote. I'm going to call it like it is. And I think that the biggest thing is if you're voting independent or third party because you want to make you feel like that's a referendum on the Republican Party, it's not. You're actually boosting the Republican Party. If you want to make the biggest impact to the Republican Party, that is going in and that is voting for Kamala Harris. Why? Because there's nothing like a bigger referendum than voting in your opponent. Okay. And again, if we look at a lot of her policies, we'll get into this. I don't want to get too far into this and start talking about all sorts of stuff that we're going to be talking about in our topics. But maybe that's what we'll start off with is we'll start off with the election because it's kind of where I'm already going, Ty. So I hope you're okay with that for right now. Sure. The one thing I want to mention is that I think for me, it is so wild to see that Kamala Harris, by all intents and purposes, is extremely moderate. Okay. You may not believe that because some of her previous stances, but it's okay for a politician to change their stance. Okay. That's just how it is. And one thing I've noticed from her is that I'll read you guys a quote. Okay. I'll let you guys in the comments and in the chat take guesses at who made this quote. Okay. So answer it and then listen in afterwards. Okay. Who read this quote? Okay. It went something to the effect of it is up to that person in the conversation between the rabbi, the pastor, the priest, the imam, not the government. Who would you think that's about? Okay, put it in the comments. Okay, don't say anything. Okay, now I'm going to tell you the answer. That was Kamala Harris. I thought that was a really interesting quote, and let me give you further context. You're probably like, what is Doghouse talking about? There was a recent clip that went around just yesterday or a couple of days ago where Kamala Harris went in and ended up talking to some hecklers, okay, and putting the foot down on them. The thing about it is the heckler, some people were saying that they were saying Lord is Savior, or Jesus is your Lord, or whatever. And they were saying, see, Kamala Harris doesn't support the Christians. It's like, okay, wait a minute. First of all, yes, she clearly does because she just said that the topic, which was abortion, okay, was between your religious leaders, not the government. That's a pretty conservative stance, if you ask me. Government out of your life? That sounds a lot like conservatives. But anyways, I'm going to let Ty jump in here and give his kind of state of the election right now, where it's going, because I've been rambling and I can ramble. I've got a whole list of things that I can ramble on about. But Ty, where do you think the state of the election is right now?
Yeah, so I divide that between my official answer and then like my kind of feels answer. My official answer is that this is going to be a very tight race. You look at your polls, which I don't really care about that much because I think 9 times out of 10 not the polls themselves, but the people who talk about polls are completely full of shit. Because whenever the polls support your side, you'll hype them up, but whenever the polls don't support your side, you'll be like, no, that's actually not real. There's some shit going on. I've been going through this road since 2016. I'm fucking over it. So let me just say it in this regard. I think it's going to be close. If you actually care about politics at all, and you feel any way motivated for voting for any of these people, just do it. Remind you it's secret ballots. You can walk away not saying the damn thing. You can walk out saying, I voted for this Republican and this Democrat and this person and that person. And I don't give a damn who you vote for. Just go vote if you feel like you need to. I would say that we all know what the battleground states are, which is Arizona, Georgia, apparently North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. My official answer is based on electioneering. Arizona and Georgia, I'm saying, are probably going to swing for Kamala. I can't talk.
Kamala.
Yeah,
you
Kamala.
got it.
No. I'm working 65 hours a week and I'm fucking grinding.
Man,
Anyway, long story short, man, I think there's a good level where it's like, I think I'm going to call those states. Like, she's going to get them. It'll be close, but she'll get them. North Carolina, I think that'll probably still go Trump, but it's going to be pretty tight.
Can I ask you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to finish up, the blue wall states up in the air. They've always been within the margin for the last like 8 years. They're very much in play, and I think Vance actually helped a lot with Trump and that because he's a Midwesterner and he talks Midwestern. So there's a level where that's true. When it comes to my overall feels, I think, I think, and I could be wrong, but Kamala is probably going to pull every single swing state. Because I think people are actually having to have that internal conversation about what they want and where they're having it. And I'll put it this way. The enthusiasm for Trump has, I think, decreased significantly from even the most MAGA people that I've met. Not to say the Kamala is strong, but I think you're going to see a very, very strong anti-Trump vote in the same way that we saw in 2022 and in 20. All the major issues have not really changed. If you don't like Trump, you have every reason to stay not liking Trump. If you don't really have many reasons to change that opinion. The only real things is that do you like Kamala more or less, and that's up to you. So yeah, that's my general take. Officially, I think it's going to be close, but Kamala's probably got a 70% chance of win. Personally, I think she's probably got it in the bag because there's enough people who just hate Trump that it will show. But anyway, go ahead and ask your questions, buddy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you, one of the biggest things that's been driving me up a wall is the Polymarket. Have you heard of that? The Polymarket betting odds?
Oh, you're talking about like the people who actually bet on the elections?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen some of the recent controversy, but a lot of what's been going on right now is Polymarket has Donald Trump going through the roof. And Kamala going down, kind of similar to like a Nate Silver almost. Last month it was Nate Silver, and this month, of course, because Donald Trump is going up on Polymarket, everybody's rushing to Polymarket and saying that it's a sign, right? What are your takes on those like odds, right? Those betting odds or even those prediction odds? What are your takes on those kinds of polls?
There's a long and a short, but I'll give the short, and then if we need to get along that, I can. These guys are interesting because they are like for real, right? Like they have auditors who actually set the odds, and they've got some pretty good reasons to do so. So there's levels where whenever somebody starts surging up in these kind of things, I don't get involved with it personally because I don't like gambling that much. My plastic crack here is, enough expenses for me in my life. But if they do something, they usually have a good reason for it. Now, I don't know what they're looking at. I'm not going to begin to speculate, but I will say that if Trump is on the surge for them, they are pointing out something. You can ask them. I don't know if they've made a post. Trump is up, in favorability because of X, but those are the people I actually would pay more attention to than even the pollsters, because they can throw some serious money at a problem if they want to. Dude, big gambling has become huge after it got deregulated. What was it, like 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Now you've got DraftKings and all the other shit that you see ads for all the time.
It's insane.
Yeah. So my general take is if they're doing something, they definitely have a reason for it. Whether that is something concrete to the greater political picture, I don't know, because I don't know what they're going off of.
Yeah, I think for me, when I look at these polls, it's such a dramatic difference. So, for example, Polymarket has Donald Trump up like 80% to win, right? But when you look at the national aggregate polling, it's a very, very, very tight race. And I tell people this because, look, a lot of people every election will say, my vote doesn't count. But guess what? When you have a race that is this close, your vote matters significantly, right? And so I tell people, look, if you're unsure about which candidate you really want to go with, I say go with the one that best suits your values, whether it is Donald Trump or whether it is Kamala Harris. I think personally it's Kamala Harris is the best way to go. There's a whole slew of reasons for that. And one of which we can get into right now, because I know Ty is really big into economics and things like that. What are your opinions on the Trump tariff policies? What are your opinions on that?
I pissed a lot of people off on them, but I'm actually pro. A lot of the criticisms leveled from the Democrats and the left are actually true, right? This is going to be, at least to some degree, inflationary. And what Trump's defense largely has been is like, hey, look, I initiated the first round of tariffs. We hardly saw any inflation, so why do you trust these people? Kind of true, actually. We didn't see a whole lot of changes during that outside of the really the price of crops. Like we're talking about stuff that's literally on the bottom end commodities levels, that are stuff that largely gets hit in these trade wars. So my long and my short is that, my short, and then you feel free to ask questions because this is something I did study in. There is a long-term goal here. We do want to encourage domestic production, or at least production with people that we like. Depends on what your foreign policy goals are. Mine are, it's like, hey, look, if we want to stabilize you or increase your economic well-being because we like you or we just want you to be part of the family, aka Mexico, then yeah, we'll probably have a pretty good deal with you. But if you're somebody we don't like or you have nothing to offer us, aka China, as far as don't like, or nothing to offer us as far as like, I'll be real, this is probably India to a large degree. Yeah, we're going to keep you at arm's length unless we have a conversation about something else. I'm in favor of that, and as much as it pains me to say it, Trump has been the biggest act of reform when it comes to international economics. And even though I don't agree with him a lot personally, when it comes to this issue, he's been knocking it out of the park for the last 8 years. So I can't, like, piss in all the shoes. Yeah.
Explain 8 years.
Because during his presidency, he did a lot of the things politically, foreign policy-wise that I agreed with. Let's say 70% of it I agreed with. And since then, outside of his domestic horseshit, is that when largely most of his foreign policy procedures, as far as what he's talking about during the Biden presidency and now what he's running on, is that I generally agree with what he wants to do. And I want to disclaim this. I intend to probably vote for Kamala. I'm debating on if I'm going to show up this round because I'm in Indiana. It's not going to matter. Like, he's going to take Indiana. But what it really does come down to, for me personally, is that if it's a policy conversation, I would vote for Trump. If it's an ethics and morality conversation, I'm voting for Kamala. And I want to make that very clear. Trump's policies, depending on like what day he's on, because he changes it literally by the afternoon, 65-70% I agree with. Like, I'm going to be straight about it. I do. It's that 30% I can always get a little framed up with. But most of the time, it's his moral failings that tie me up. But yeah, tariffs I'm largely for, although I would like to see a little bit more nuance in that conversation. But I'm generally pro-tariff.
I was going to say, though, you said you're generally pro-tariff. Now, is there a ceiling on that tariff? Because Donald Trump, over the past week or 2 weeks, has advocated for upwards of a 2,000% tariff for cars imported to the United States. So is there a cap where you're like, okay, that tariff is just absolutely bonkers?
No, and this is why. The primary antagonist that he's going after, and rightfully so, is China. China cheats on every major facet that you can think of, right? They are basically, their banking system is what we think of as Enron. You know that when that all crashed, it runs on the same thing. It like Snopes, or not Snopes, Moody's. Excuse me, I'm completely off base. Moody's, which does financial analyses for a lot of different people, estimates that there is at least 10% of their economy that is legalized, or basically legalized loan sharking, that like the Chinese aren't even accounting for. Like, there is so much money and liquidity within their system that they just hemorrhage out just from the top, where they print the money, they give it to their major four banks, and then they give it out to sub banks, and then basically wealthy people to loan out. And they loan it out at like 1, 2, or 0% interest loans. I'm not kidding. That, like, this is how their system runs. And then they subsidize it. Oh, also, almost every major political corporation is tied with the Chinese Communist Party. So it literally is like technically state capitalism, but it's pretty centrally planned. So they cheat on everything. It's not about making profit, it's about making throughput. That's why you have entire cities that have been built in China that have no one in them, because they just needed to use the shit. So how do you stop that? You basically make it where it is economically uncompetitive to ever buy from somebody who cheats. So 2,000% tariffs may sound ridiculous to people. Totally understand that. It's what is required. Is you just basically need to tell people, hey, we're not actually embargoing you, but we're embargoing you. That's literally what this conversation is.
Now, I get what you're saying, because what you're saying is that tariffs put a pressure on the particular country in which that tariff is being applied to, right?
Yeah.
But I think the downwind issue, which is what a lot of people's concerns are, and rightfully so, and Kamala's concern, is the fact that this is going to ultimately hurt the American people via increased prices, right? I think a 2,000% tariff, although it may put a zinger onto China, it's going to end up costing, if we're going off the 2,000% tariff for imported cars, it's going to dramatically increase the cost of buying a car here in the United States, right?
Potentially, yes. There's always a scaling and a time frame conversation. Usually, when you roll out any kind of tax, and particularly even tariffs, is that you escalate it, right? You don't just be like, bam, here's the full tax, or here's the full wage, or here's whatever. You're like, all right, here's where we're at. We're gonna increase it this year by this much, then by this much, then by this much. We've seen this whenever we usually raise minimum wage. We don't do it all at one time, right? Usually most
Right.
taxes, we don't usually do it all at one time. We escalate it. That's probably what's going to happen. Not saying that's what is going to happen. But there's twofold. Number one, will it make things cost more here at home on a number of levels? Potentially, yes. Right? I'm not going to act like that's not the possibility. And in case, by math, it should. On the other side of it, what is the actual end goal objective? Because tariffs would be stupid if that's the case. It's domestic production. You actually want people to make it here. And remember when I said China cheats? Do you actually feel good buying cheap shit when it's used by basically Chinese slave laborers who have no union protection, no environmental protections, any of this shit, right? I will make the argument, if you want a greener world, you need to make all the stuff that is made in China in the United States or in the EU, because we actually have environmental regulations. China doesn't. They don't care. So there's a couple of levels where if you're just looking at like simple base cost, maybe when we reindustrialize, which we are doing, both administrations have actually been trying to push that pretty hard, is that we can actually have better quality of goods for somewhere between minus 20% and plus 30%. And I wish that I could give you better numbers on that one, but it depends on industry. I think cars, we can actually get pretty competitive with China on in most car parts. The question is stuff that they're really good with high labor on. A great example is the semiconductors. And I'm not talking about the tiny ones that TSMC makes out of Taiwan. I'm talking about the ones that make your fridge sing, the ones that make your lights change colors. Yeah, those ones are probably going to go up quite a bit in price. So you'll see the Internet of Things, right? All the little smart gadgets and gizmos, those are all probably gone. But I'm okay with that because they're kind of stupid anyway.
Well, look, here's the thing is I'm looking at like, I don't know if you've, so the Tax Foundation actually did an analysis on some of Trump's, and I'll let you kind of rebut some of these. I don't know if you're familiar with some of these stats, but they found that under Trump's proposal of significant tariff hikes, it would end up increasing our taxes by another $524 billion annually, and shrink GDP by at least 0.8%, capital stock by 0.7%, and employment by 684,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Now, not saying Kamala Harris is any better on that regard, but she is better in the sense that she would only reduce GDP by 0.2%, capital stock by 0.1%, and employment by 142,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Now, I want to keep people in mind when I read this statistic. This is from June. This is prior to Donald Trump coming out for 2,000% tariffs. So what would be your response to those particular statistics in regards to these tariffs? Is that
Yeah, I got you. Sounds like the same conversation I always have when it comes to this kind of issue, right? Where we always do the front hand math, but we never do any of the backhand math. Now, granted, sometimes the backhand math is a guess, right? Or it's an estimation. But what they're saying makes sense. What they're basically outlining is this: we're getting a shitload of stuff from China. We're gonna either we're going to pay more for it, or we're just going to buy less of it. Either one is probably going to be the case. So you're going to see people who take it off the ships who are not needed as much anymore. The people who put it on the trucks and the trains are not needed as more. The people who drive the trucks and the trains aren't needed anymore. So there's your unemployment. There's your lower GDP numbers. All that makes sense. I have no problem with that. The issue is that do people actually expect that you're going to see all these goods and services potentially be reduced or increase in massive cost and nothing happens. And that's kind of where that previous conversation I was just having with you. Some of these things, like the Internet of Things, like you're seeing light bulbs and you're seeing fridge, probably gone, because I don't think people really actually give a shit about it if they have to worry about the cost. Like, most of these things are $10 for a pack of 4, right? No big deal. But if you actually have to pay a real price for it, maybe you don't buy it anymore. On the other side of that, if it's things that you do need, like car parts, you're probably going to see more jobs open up here in the United States for people to take up those things. Or at least in Mexico, you're going to have levels where, okay, cool, now the people who are going to drive the ships and the trains and the cranes and all that stuff are shifting from driving them off Long Beach or Houston or Savannah, Georgia, and now they're taking it from the U.S.-Mexico border. So there will be a shifting of economic priorities. It's called a creative destruction. But there is a level where I actually think, by some of the math that I have done, and granted, I don't have my site credentials here with it, but there's probably pretty good reason to look at some of the things that we can do in response as a good thing. And I want to just outline it in this particular way for anyone who's kind of skeptical. How well does most cars hold up now? On some levels, pretty good, right? Like, you can pretty well expect any vehicle that you have to make it 100,000 miles without, completely exploding, right? Or, needing a transmission replaced. It's pretty rare if that actually needs to happen. But outside of that, all the little add-ons, all the little doodads, the cheap Chinese plastic shit, whether it's in the car or more particularly the stuff that you bring in your house, like the stuff your kids play with, it breaks easily. And there's not a lot of replacement parts. And if you do get the replacement parts, you got to wait 3 weeks sometimes, or you're paying $200 on top of that because it's a industry specific part from Ford or something, right? I think that's probably not necessarily going to go away, but it's going to get reworked to a large degree, because we used to make things here back in the day. And while it wasn't always the cheapest, the better part was that it used to last longer. And the thing is, you can get a vehicle that was made in the United States back in the 80s. And yeah, it might be a rust bucket. You might need to put some work in it to fix it up, but you can get the parts for it. And when you put it all back together with any kind of skill, it's going to work. And that bitch may have 400,000 miles on it, and you can just run with it. You can't do that with some of the stuff that was made in the 2000s. Like old televisions that were made in the 2000s? Nah, forget it. A lot of vehicles that were made past 2000, if they're getting to the point of 2008 now, and they've got 250,000 miles on it, you can't fix them. You can't get the parts for them. Everything's degrading in it. The dash is coming apart. I firmly believe that we actually could kind of reinvent the wheel here, because Americans forgot that we're good at one thing that a lot of people don't realize: reliability. We make shit that works. It don't always look pretty, but anytime that this country actually commits, we make good stuff that lasts. We've been really good at it. And I'm done.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. So, and we're gonna start pivoting a little bit, because we're talking about the jobs and things like that, and I'll start moving that direction. But I want to hit on this. I think this is very important. Is that one? We have an issue with how long it takes to build these factories. We also have to get these tariffs implemented. I think this is going to be a net negative for the American people, not a net positive, is what I'm taking away from this. And I'm curious if you would agree with that statement.
Short term, yes. Long term, no.
Gotcha.
That is the whole kicker here. Tariffs at a glance are always a short term negative. The question is, can you make them positive long term?
Gotcha.
Most economists will tell you. Most economists are going to tell you no. I disagree with them because, again, I don't think they ever do the backhand math. I don't think they ever talk about new factories coming online, new jobs that come online for the distribution and the production, and all vice versa going forward to that. I think free trade actually is probably far less of a positive than people make it out to be.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So on the topic of us, ending up winding up losing jobs and things like that, the state of our economy right now is going crazy. I think a lot of people don't look at the economy and how it's going and the direction it's going. And I think that's the other thing too, that a lot of people need to take into consideration is that when we look at the state of our economy right now, we just had the stock market close at another record high. For anyone who's unaware, the stock market, I believe, has closed at like 37 record highs just this year. We've also had job losses going down. I think it just went up a little bit, and we'll get into that in just a second. But we've also seen record oil production. We've seen Fed rates coming down at record proportions. It came down like half a point, which is almost unheard of. The lowest rate adjustment, I think, since COVID. You can quote me on that or not, Ty, but it's our economy is doing extremely well. And I think that bringing in Trump's policies would only wind up hurting our economy significantly. Ty, to the point of job losses, what did you, because I saw you mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about this. What do you think about the state of our economy currently and the direction it could go in with both candidates? Where would it go with Kamala Harris versus Trump?
Yeah, so that's a complicated one, and I'll try to keep that one as short as I can. Yeah, as far as the state of the economy, if your household, let me put it this way, and this also depends on where you live, because if you make a certain amount of money in Ohio versus California, there's a big difference there, right? But I want to make it very clear. If your household combined makes more than $100,000, you're probably doing pretty damn well. And you probably have insurance. You probably have access to most of any things you want, and then you have a disposable income, and you are the economic engine of the country right now. And there's a lot of people who are in that facet, because if you weren't, how the hell else are you going to afford a $400,000 home these days, right? But apparently there's a lot of people able to do that. On the other side of that, if you are not one of those people, if you are one of those folks that you don't get insurance as part of your employment package, if you are working, 40 hours a week for, $16 an hour or less kind of deal, you're kind of hosed, because you're in a really bad spot where you probably either don't have the skills that you need to get a really productive job that gets you into those higher brackets. You may have responsibilities that keep you from that. And I am talking a little bit of an experience here, and I'll get into that here in a second. But the long and the short here is that I've never seen an economy that is so good for some while so bad for others. But it really is that situation. Like the people who are bitching about inflation, because it's like, hey, dude, I just had everything go up 30%. My wages went up 2%. That's real, right? There's a lot of people in the middle class who can bitch about it, but they can eat it. There's a lot of people who are poor who can't. And granted, while inflation's a lot better now, it's going to take 7 years at the current rate to catch up back to 2020 levels where people could afford shit, or 2019 levels.
Well, and can I give a little bit of pushback on that? So what would you say about the wages? The wages have been outpacing inflation for, I believe it was about the past 4 to 6 months. We've seen wages consistently outpacing inflation.
General compensation. And that's not only wages, but benefits as well, right? Overall have been outpacing inflation for the better part of the last 2 years. And that's a good thing. But most people aren't feeling that, because what happened was within a 3-year period, we watched the majority of things go up by about 30% overall.
Right.
And so that, 2% extra that you're getting on top of the current inflation that you have now, it's helping, but it's not catching you up very quickly. Again, it's going to be about 7 years for the average person to feel like they were back at where they were back in 2019. And that sucks. But it is on the right track. You don't want to go back to where we were.
And I feel like that's kind of the biggest issue, right? Which is a lot of people are sitting there, they forget that we had a particular large event that happened in 2020, and our prices of products have gone up, and we don't want deflation. And so the reality is that some of the price of our products are going to be somewhat high for this foreseeable future. The question is how can and what policies can these candidates provide to help alleviate some of these extra stresses, right?
Not shit. Like, we can talk about all the things that they actually are putting out, and some of it is kind of vague posting. Like a lot of Kamala's tax stuff is actually vague posting. Like her unrealized capital gains.
Not a huge fan of that one. I'll agree with you on that one.
It's not even about whether you're huge on it, because she's saying that it's going to be for the, like people making over $10 million a year, right?
Yeah.
Is that actually going to be the case? Well, here's the problem. No matter who wins, we're probably looking at a divided Congress. We're probably looking at people who don't want to agree on jack shit. So figure 90% of whatever these people want to do, not happening anyway, unless you actually get a bipartisan deal.
It would get watered down pretty significantly, right? Like, for example, I could see a situation where we see, like, for example, Kamala Harris wants to implement, I believe it's a $6,000 child tax credit for the first year of that child's life. Notice how I said for the first year of that child's life. My prediction, or a bigger one, we could look at the business tax credit that she wants to bring up from $5,000 up to $50,000. I don't know if it's going to go through at 50,000. I would see that there's going to be a major revision that probably brings it down to 30,000. And I would argue that even the unrealized capital gains tax, I would imagine, even though I'm not a huge fan of it on its face, I would say that the unrealized capital gains tax could be revised. I don't see that one. I think it's a bigger sell than obviously the child tax credit.
Yeah, it can be revised. The general issue here is that I'm in this weird life that I have right now where I'm watching Democrats become old school Republicans.
Right.
Where it's just like tax cut, tax cut, tax cut. By the way, fucking called it. They're going to be the Libertarian Party. No, I'm serious. I've said this since 2016. At the rate these two parties are going, the Republicans are going to be an openly statist party where they're just like, we're going to tell you how to do everything and do everything. And the Democrats are going to become libertarian. They're literally going to be like, we don't really care if you're gay. We don't really care if you're trans. But we're not going to tax people a lot. And we're actually not going to help you out very much outside of giving you lip service. That's what they're going to do. Like they will, I guarantee you by the end of this decade, the biggest pushers for charity are going to be Democrats. It's going to be wild.
It's already wild, right?
Yeah.
It's like going through and watching this. And this is what's so crazy to me is like, I've seen Democrats. I've seen conservatives and MAGA sit there and go, well, look at the fact that Kamala Harris was voted as the most liberal candidate in 2019. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you do realize there are other sections out there as like, for example, if you look at Bernie Sanders for GovTrack, he was voted as he was deemed the most progressive candidate. So people leave that out when MAGA and conservatives talk about Kamala Harris and they go, oh, she's so liberal. GovTrack rated her most liberal. It's like, yeah, that's a compliment. That's not a bad thing.
I don't think she's a far left communist. Like people want to call her Comrade Kamala, and it's just like, as somebody who leans Republican, like I usually look at these folks and I'm like, hey, what's communist about her? Like if anything, she's a rich bitch from California. Like literally, like that, huh?
I was like, hey man, come on now.
I mean, look, I will shit talk Kamala all damn day because like I think she's a diversity hire that failed up. I really do.
Don't go there, Ty.
I will. But on the other side of this, like talking about the actual repercussions of where we are, and at least what we're looking at. I don't think Kamala's a radical. She's not actually said anything that like absolutely makes me want to scream, because even if 90% of her policy she actually were to get implemented, none of it actually targets me. None of it really helps me, but none of it really targets me either. So I don't really give a crap. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have some other opinions about that based upon where you are and what you're doing. But the things that I think actually would help me, ironically enough, Trump's more on the favor with. But I have to be right on that. Tariffs making things long term turning out better, because I'm in a state that produces more steel than any other state. I want to see tariffs because we like to make more of your steel. We would.
Well, and Kamala's doing the move that I have been saying for the past several years, which is like, look, if you want to reel in those moderates, tax cuts, you can do something via a tax cut that ends up doing some kind of means testing, okay? It's not a huge thing that a lot of people like is means testing on the right, but at the same time, you're able to kind of do do it through that tax policy, right? But I do want to mention this too, and Ty, you're more welcome to jump in on this one as well. The tax cuts have proven to be actually, at least the way that Trump did them, a net negative on our deficit. We increased our deficit by, I think it was like $1 billion or something like that through this tax cut. I had the
well, I think it was like 1 trillion over 4 years is what it ended up being on.
It was $1.9 trillion.
Yeah, I was not in favor of the tax cuts, and I haven't been. One of the biggest things that pisses me off about this election is how much I'm hearing about tax cuts. Motherfuckers, we're 35 trillion in the hole on federal, and then on top of that, we're running, I think, something on the order of like $500 billion deficit per year right now at minimum, right? Like, depending on appropriations, that could go up easily to $800 billion this year. Like, we're literally stacking $1 trillion a year on the deficit or onto the loan, and we're now paying over $1 trillion just out of our budget in interest. No, tax cuts don't need to happen. We need tax hikes. Like, I actually will say that. Fucking tax me more. This is ridiculous.
Well, let me give you, this is from the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. For anyone who's out there who's not aware of it, please look it up. It is an extensive list, and they break down exactly how they came up with these estimates. On the low end, Kamala Harris is estimated to bring in 0 on the deficit. In fact, it would be neutral. And the way they came up with it is this, and Ty, feel free to hit on any of these points. She wants to increase the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. She wants to increase taxes on capital income, which I believe this may be in reference to the unrealized capital gains and losses, possibly. Increase the NIIT and Medicare taxes, reform international tax rules, reduce prescription drug costs. I think that is something that she has already done previously through the Biden administration, but she wants to implement now. We also have other revenues from the president's budget, including a higher book minimum tax, IRS funding, and compensation deductibility limits. That's something that kind of goes unnoticed a lot, right? Is the IRS funding. We just had Kamala Harris recently come out, or not Kamala Harris, the IRS union has just recently come out in support of Kamala Harris. Why? Because she supports funding the IRS. The reason we're struggling so hard on our IRS is because there's not enough people there to be able to process these returns. We've been behind for several years. But Ty, what is your take on that when it comes to that versus Trump? Trump wants to, on the low end, he wants to establish a universal baseline tariff and additional tariffs. That makes up a huge portion of his income at 4,300 billions. Okay, whatever you take that. Reverse current energy and environmental policies and expand production. These are all of his incomes. These are ones that are net positives. Reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, which I think that is such a vague term, by the way. Yep. And in the department, this is a wild one to me. And man, we can definitely get into this as well. Ending the Department of Education and supporting school choice. This committee thought that would be a net positive towards our deficit. And I don't know quite how, but other than just cutting it.
It shifts the conversation to the states because if I remember right, the Department of Education gives, it used to be like $50 billion, but I think last year it was like $70 billion out to places with grants and whatnot. It was like, hey, you need money, so here it is. Would that cut down on the deficit? Sure, it would. Would it make our schools even worse than it already is? Yes. And by the way, school choice is one of the dumbest shit things ever. Ironically, the wrong parties is pushing it. School choice helps Democrats. It doesn't help Republicans. It fucks Republicans. And it's a terrible policy. It's a terrible policy for people whose voters are in the sticks. And so, like, I can go into that one to a whole different degree.
We can definitely jump in there, but definitely continue on.
The tax policies when it comes to revenue.
Hey, wait a minute, guys. I got breaking news. We have a guest that wants to join us. There was somebody in chat who mentioned a particular guest. Let's go ahead and bring that guest in. I have a surprise guest for everyone. Let's bring him on in. CounterPoints, my man. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
How are you?
Doing good, man.
Oh, life is fantastic. How are you fine folk?
Hanging in there. So we somebody in chat, I think it was Blizza maybe, who was like going nuts saying you should do a podcast with CounterPoints. I'm like, well, it's funny you should ask. So how have you been, man? You have been absolutely killing it on that game, on that front. And how are things been going for you, man?
The Warhammer channel's doing awesome. Just in case anybody's into it, the Space Marine 2 game came out in October. Games Workshop released a series of animations that were really good for the channel. And we bumped up, I don't know, maybe 10K subs in the past, 2 months. And also the
Crazy.
metrics are really good across the board. So we're probably going to break 100K on Warhammer,
Nice.
by the end of the year. So yeah, that's pretty huge. And
Congratulations,
then also,
man.
yeah, thank you. And then also, I probably started doing something that I should have done 2 or 3 years ago on the politics side, which my second channel is Counterfire. That's the political channel. I just figured people are into like the pop culture 10-minute stuff, and I've kind of been stuck at like I can't stream enough to stream. So I just started doing 10-minute episodes almost daily. And some of them are duds and some of them are popping off. So I don't know what to tell you there. We're trying everything.
Absolutely. I tell Redtron, my editor, I tell him like, look, man, if it sinks, it sinks. If it swims, it swims. Just go with it. You know, you got to roll with it, man. You can't force the algorithm. You can try to figure it out all day long and you're never going to figure it out. But yeah, man, that's awesome. So me and Ty, we were just talking about the state of the election essentially and where we think, and the economy is kind of tied into that. Where do you stand with the state of the election and kind of how it's going?
It's tight. It's too tight. It's too close for comfort. I'm taking like psychic damage every single day, and the reason being, I think it's mostly because I am on Twitter, so I'm kind of like inviting that psychic damage onto myself. However,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, or at least people who were kind of like leaning, like, okay, Trump sucks, we're gonna go lean Democrat. It seemed like when Biden had that debate, disaster, right? You're just like, he's gonna sweep. Then Trump almost gets assassinated. Disaster. He's going to sweep. And then they swap out for Kamala, and Kamala's like younger. There's some momentum. There's some messaging. Okay, maybe the Democrats got it. And then I would say that was the vibe up until this past week. And then I think just because we're so close and it's so tight, it is everyone's uncomfortable.
I feel like it's adjusting, right? Like I feel like the polls are starting to adjust to kind of that reality that we are really neck and neck. And it's not like it's no, Kamala enjoyed a really good poll lead and she still, I think, is to a very small degree. But there's also been some issues from my understanding with the way that polling is being done. Republican pollsters are actually flooding the polls right now. And so the aggregate is leaning a little bit more on Trump. Now you could say that that's a little bit of a Democrat cope, but either way, it's undeniable that the race is extremely close. And I will tell you, as you said, you were on Twitter and you're kind of like, I feel like I'm doom scrolling all day because all I'm seeing is like the most dumb takes from MAGA and I'm screaming and I'm like, why are we doing this? But of course, the problem is I understand this is that I'm on Twitter. I'm Twitter brained. Okay. I understand that the normie out there is watching Fox News. They're out there watching, MSNBC. And on that note of Fox News, what did you think about the Kamala Harris Fox News interview / debate?
I liked it a lot. And the reason why I liked it, so nobody has to think that Kamala did like a particularly great job. But what I did like about it is I liked seeing her get pressed. And the reason why is because Trump and Vance, they complained about like bias moderation during the debates. They complained about like bias reporters always dogging them and all that kind of stuff. There could not have been a more biased way for Brett Baier to phrase his questions. And yet Kamala, she did get a little pissed off at, a point, admittedly, but she was taking it. She wasn't falling for traps. And then she was giving it back a little bit. And so I think that if you hate Kamala, you hate Kamala. It is what it is.
Right.
But I think that if you wanted to see that the Democratic candidate was younger, able to think on their feet, didn't fall for bait, then that was demonstrated through that conversation.
I also feel like and Ty, feel free to jump in here at any point. I feel like one of the things for me when I watched that Kamala Harris interview, it was abundantly clear to me that was not a interview, or I'll call it a debate, to try to persuade the Fox News audience to her. The idea is exactly like you said, show how strong she was under pressure. It was also to try, and I think there's some other things you can read between the lines here, was that she was trying to unveil some of Trump's lies. And I think there was many points where I think that even if she gained 1 or 2 voters, then that's great. But then, like you said, it wasn't that she was going in there to persuade. That wasn't the goal. It was to show how strong she is. And we've seen, anybody who's been on Twitter for the past several days, that Trump has been conveniently missing out on a lot of different interviews. If you're not familiar and you haven't been on Twitter, okay, this isn't being reported very much on mainstream. He's been canceling a lot of interviews. He has shown that he is falling asleep at roundtables, and they all conveniently take place later on in the day after he has done several interviews, several roundtables. And I think the contrast is growing bigger and bigger and bigger as we get closer. Like, this man is falling asleep.
But I'm a fan of this because I was one of the people who I will admit to being biased in a political direction, but I'm upfront with my bias, which is, here are the reasons why I'm thinking the way that I'm thinking. This is why I'm pushing for this candidate. These are the reasons, etc. But one of the things that I think should have been capitalized on, perhaps even more aggressively, by the Harris campaign was there was a lot of heat coming Joe Biden's way for being old, senile, loose-lipped, weird interviews, weird press conferences, all that kind of stuff. And the Republicans were pressing hard, like, this dude's too old, he can't do it. And I think that they could have, the Kamala campaign could have pressed that harder with Trump, but they just haven't capitalized on it as much as they could have. Example before I shut up is the debate. Like, the debate was, there's a reason why that Trump did not ask for multiple debates with Kamala versus asking for multiple debates with Biden.
Right. Exactly. I think it's so interesting to me too. And you talked about this exhaustion. Did you see that rally where he ended up standing there for 30 minutes on a stage? That was the most awkward performance I've ever seen. The man was dancing a YMCA, which, by the way, was a very interesting choice because it felt like his liberalism was coming out there. And I'm like, wait a minute.
This is the gay song, right?
I was like, wait a minute. Wait, is he going to come out now with like a pride flag on stage or something? Like, wait a minute.
Trump.
Right. It's just like, wait a minute. Is Milo going to pop out of somewhere?
But see, this is the thing, is that there are so many of these little moments of, like, Trump getting a little awkward with the comedy podcast that he was on, or, like you said, Trump falling asleep at a round table, or Trump being awkward dancing at a rally or something like that. And so there's so many awkward moments like that, but we've had awkward moments like that for 10 years now. And so what happens is you hit a weird moment, you move on, hit a weird moment, move on, hit a weird moment, move on. And so what happens is, by the time that you're still talking shit about something that happened, 3 weeks ago, there's already 3 new things that you're trying to catch on to.
Right. It's just like FEMA. This topic, I discovered this and I tweeted about this because no one is covering the update. There was a lot of hubbub about the $750, and then literally the next day, boom, things change, and it's no longer about FEMA. It's like, we went great, we got our news cycle in, we're done. Nobody followed up, and the follow-up for anyone who has not seen this update, FEMA has doled out in just 2 weeks. Okay, this hurricane didn't take place, but only a couple of weeks ago. They have doled out $100 million aside from the individual assistance. This is actually for home repairs. I think $82 million was for home repairs, but nobody's covering it because Donald Trump decided to go on a stage and sing YMCA, and then decided to go yesterday, his mic cut out, and he threatened to sue the microphone company on stage. Like, he's becoming like,
dude, you're trying to, like, actually latch onto these things. I would not try, because you're trying to be like, oh, hey, this thing happened and it's stupid and we should, like, point it out. And it's like, dude, if I got this upset at every single thing that happened in this campaign cycle, I would be like Donald Trump. I would be falling asleep during meetings. I would be falling asleep at work. And sometimes that does happen. So but the point is that, like, listen, you have to understand, or at least what I think is going on, is that there are people who have made a lot of money being outrage merchants. And so what they need to do is they need to get into the situation, tweet a bunch of wild shit, get all their engagement up, both from a hate perspective and a love perspective, and then keep it moving. They can't dig into anything or analyze the truth or whatever, because the truth is, that's boring. That's not fun. That's not sexy. That's not exciting. It has to be hyperbolic. So, for instance, Marjorie Taylor Greene, there was in Georgia today, there was someone, the Georgia State of Electors, if I remember this correct, The Georgia election official said that it was an improper key. It was human error. The person kept pressing the wrong button or something like that, and then that's what ended up swapping their vote to the incorrect
Yeah.
one. But they saw it on the printed out ballot, and so they were able to fix it. No big deal. Well, MTG is saying, "Oh, these are Dominion machines. We're getting ready for another steal." And it's like, dude, what's going to happen is that is going to pump up the furor, but then 72 hours, everybody's going to forget. So you still have the emotional energy, but you don't have the facts behind the emotional energy.
And this has happened time and time again, right? Is that MAGA will come out, they will make some outlandish claim, and then by the time it's fact checked, it's already too late, right? And in the case of the one that actually ended up sticking, which was terrible by the Trump campaign, and they've done everything to move past it, but yet Donald Trump keeps bringing it up, is the Haitian migrants. JD Vance like doubled down on it and said, I don't care about the facts. Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to spread the lie. Anyway, it's like, bro, like, why are you doing? But yeah, I agree. It is the craziest thing about this. And I want to get onto the economy. Do you think that this economy thing, it's so wild to me how Republicans are blind to how well our economy is doing. And it feels like cope when they sit there and they go, oh, well, the stock market is up because of Donald Trump. It's like, it's been going up for the entire year. What do you think about this economy and how well it's doing and how Republicans are kind of like coping on this, like this news?
Well, I think that there we are, at least in my estimation. Okay, I'm not saying this is accurate. I'm saying this is my vibe. Okay, feel my vibe. I feel like we're in a K economy, and that's the way that I've heard it described. And it's a split where basically like the working class or whatever is stagnating or going down, and then the middle class and the upper middle class are going up. And so if you're upper middle class or middle class, then you're probably doing okay. And what I mean by that is I've been able to, through a job and 2 side hustles that I like doing, I've been able to keep my wife at home since 2020 and raise 2 kids and pay bills most of the time. Okay. Now they might be a little bit
God
late,
bless you.
you know, whatever, but I've been able to pay my bills. And so that's been huge, right? Whereas I think a lot of the working class is more used to both members of a couple working in order to make ends meet, and that's a tough way to live. And especially, God forbid, if you're actually working class, wife is working part-time or full-time, and then the husband is working a job and a half. They're working a job and a side hustle in order to make ends meet. So I think that there's a real complaint for the working class and the lower middle class of like, we can't do what we're supposed to do and get by in a way that's comfortable. We have to bust ourselves down to the bone in order to just survive. Now, maybe that's the way that things have always been. But for me, it's a tough way to live. And it's not really living up to the promises that we were told as kids.
It
Right.
sounds vaguely familiar. I just saying.
What is this resonating with your personal experience?
So we literally were just talking about this before you got
Yeah.
in here, and there's a level where I said, you know, miles may vary because there's a hell of a difference between living in Ohio and California. But to a large degree, if your household makes more than $100,000 to where your job gives you health insurance, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, you might be busting your tooth, but you've got a disposable income. You can go on vacation. You know, you're doing pretty good. And even with inflation, yeah, it sucks, but you can eat it. Most of these people who are working class, if you don't have the skills, if you're, you know, having a lot of those general issues where it's like, hey, you know, you don't have a job that gives you PTO or any of that kind of thing, you're eating fucking bricks right now, and it's awful.
Well, and sorry, Doghouse, if I'm cutting in right here, but I think
Go ahead.
I think the reason why Trump does have staying power when he's talking about the economy, I think his policies are potentially disastrous when it comes to this. However, I wanted Doghouse to hear this, but it's okay. I'll repeat it when he gets back. So I think that the tariffs and economic protectionism it speaks to these. Oh, Doghouse, I'm just going to repeat myself since you're only gone for a second.
Yeah.
So I think that Trump's policies when it comes to a tariff trade war, when it comes to, well, basically the tariff trade war, I think is the only one that I really care about. I think that he's speaking to the people who are getting screwed in the modern American economy. But I think that especially in the short term, deporting 20 million people who work in construction and agriculture, and then also engaging in protectionist trade wars in order to make American products competitive with international products, I don't see how this doesn't absolutely shaft like the working class harder than they've been. Because basically what you're talking about is you're talking about construction and groceries going up, and you're also talking about the goods that you buy at Walmart in order to survive also going up. I don't know how you deal with that.
Don't forget McDonald's. McDonald's largest, all of their fries come from, I believe, Idaho. So if you were to like take that into consideration, your fast food's going to go up too. Like everything's going to go up under a Donald Trump.
Fast food is a luxury. That's one of the interesting things is fast food is borderline a luxury right now. So fast food used to be the cheap, convenient replacement for a meal when you're busy. That's what it used to be like a decade or two ago. Now fast food is like, I have to go cook at home because if I buy fast food, it's triple the price of a meal. That's my personal experience.
It's insane. And that's the whole thing is like, when we look at these policies, it's insane. And you mentioned like immigration. I think this is one thing I've been trying to really kind of research a little bit more about. And it's, I don't mean to go doomer. I'm going to go doomer though. And this is the thing is like, when I hear about like mass deportations, I hear about, wanting to do stop and frisk. This is something that Donald Trump has openly advocated for. I start to get a really not so comfortable picture. And then I also look at the rhetoric about how we're painting all of our immigrants, not pivoting, like they're all, this is how Donald Trump paints them, as criminals. I really am concerned. To me, if you are someone that has a lighter skin complexion, and I'm saying this because of how he said, he's mentioned Haitians, he's mentioned like, if you're lighter skin color, I really do genuinely worry if Donald Trump is elected, what your future looks like in this country. He's already advocated for stop and frisk. He's advocated for mass deportation. I can only imagine the constitutional violations that are existing there. It is insane.
One of the things that is frustrating to me, so I get called a rhino, a libtard, a cuck, a commie. Like I get called all that stuff all the time.
Welcome to the family. This is all three of us.
But there is a book behind me because I finally filled up all my bookshelves with books because people didn't donate so much money that I could just fill them with Warhammer miniatures. But God bless the audience anyway. But there's a criminal justice standards training book here from when I went to the police academy in 2015. And I want to say on the opening 1 or 2 pages, it talks about the ideal American society. And like the ideal American society is one in which a law-abiding citizen who is committing no crime has no fear of the police because they will not be intervened upon. And actually, as a law enforcement officer, if you see civilians walking around doing their thing, crossing at the pedestrian crosswalk, obeying the speed limit, putting on their seatbelt, all that kind of stuff, leave them the fudge alone. Okay. And that's basically what the book says. And for me, I think that's cool. I think that you're literally telling the security training manual saying you live in a free country, do not harass people who are minding their own business. I think that's a cool idea and part of what makes America cool. So if we go to, well, you're brown and you're speaking Spanish in front of me, therefore I'm going to detain you as a law enforcement officer until I can verify your immigration status, that doesn't sound like a free country to me. It doesn't. Or at least it sounds like violating.
I haven't had a chance to talk to you about politics for a while, Connor, So like, how much do you think that is like legit versus how much of this is fear mongering? Because we've done this with abortion. We've done this with fucking defund the police when we actually ended up funding it more. So like, can you ground this out for me personally?
Sure. I don't think this will go, or I don't think this will go through with local law enforcement. I think that there's enough of a culture within local law enforcement where they one, they don't have the authority. 2, it's a huge liability. 3, even if you deputize them, there's healthy chunk of municipalities who are not going to want to participate in this because they're not going to want to flood their jails and their prisons with a bunch of immigrants pending deportation from the federal government. And also it's going to cost, if it was actually done, it's going to cost a truckload of cash. And so I think that the actual participation from local law enforcement and state law enforcement is going to be minimal. I just think that you're going to see a beefing up and increased aggression from ICE and Border Patrol.
Okay, that sounds reasonable to me, and it's kind of what I expect.
Yeah. So sorry, real quick. So for me, it's not the
Wait, can
outcome.
I jump in here?
Sure.
I know you've got like a thing to say, but I haven't. I just jumped in because I felt so strongly about this. But like,
Sure.
I want to take it back to when we're talking about stop and frisk and how that's like inherently racist and how that was it was applied in a very racist way. And
They're
I want to
probably
talk about
stopping brown and black people disproportionately. Sure.
exactly. So like what like we already know that pretextual police stops happen all the time and that they are mostly done with black and brown people. So like
Mhm.
what's the difference of today? Do you really think that like we're making that big of a change? Do you think we've come that far from stop and frisk? Because I
Well,
would
I think
argue that like we're still there and we're still doing that in like
well,
90% of
I'm gonna say that
situations.
this depends on regional locality. Okay, so I am in Central Florida. We don't have stop and frisk here. Okay, if you're in a rough neighborhood, you might get like stop and frisk, but it's gonna be like a Terry stop, right? So it's gonna be like a investigative stop, and on top of that, you're gonna have to articulate why you're doing the stop, et cetera, et cetera.
Wait, but
Whereas what
no. But this seems completely wrong to me. It seems like you are a white person responding to, and you're
okay?
telling me what your experience has been. Because like
No, hold
I
on.
know
That
black
was like
people that
10% of
walk
my
through.
idea.
Hey,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
go
That was
sorry.
ahead.
like
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So
Let him talk.
well, so I was just going to say in Baltimore and in New York City, stop and frisk and broken windows policing was the tactics for extended periods. And so they basically do say, "Hey, put your hands on the wall. I'm going to pat you down or whatever." And you're just a Joe Schmo walking through your neighborhood doing whatever. And I'm pretty sure the reason why New York actually significantly reduced their stop and frisk program, I would actually have to take a look at what it is right now. But the reason why they caught so much flack was because 99% of their stops didn't come up with anything because they were stopping everybody inside neighborhoods and it was just 90% black and brown. So you're saying like what's the difference between where we're at now and where we're at then? And I would say what happens during stop and frisk now in New York and Baltimore in giant urban centers is you're going to get patted down and then you're going to get told to fuck off and go about your day. Whereas what could happen, I'm not saying it's going to, but what could happen if Trump said, "Oh, New York Police Department, you work for me now. You're deputized as like immigration officers." You would have them detain brown and black people and then check their immigration status over whether or not they're going to get carted up into a bus and shipped out of the country. That's the difference.
Okay. So yeah, it gets worse under Trump, is what you're saying. I'm a leftist. If you don't know me, I'm sure you don't. I hope you don't.
Couldn't tell.
So like I'm just against cops in every way, but like I don't see how that's any different. Like you admit that like 90% of stop and frisk stops were actually black and brown people. And so like with them being 13% of the population, that should be that 13% of them were stopped, but it was 90%. You acknowledge that. So like do you think
I'd have to double check the
different?
stats, but I'm pretty sure that was part of the controversy for New York stop and frisk was it was disproportionately targeting certain neighborhoods.
No, it absolutely was. Because it was also, like you said, broken windows policing.
Yep.
They went to where the problems were, quote unquote, and they kind of exacerbated the problems by further policing those people and putting them in prison. So, like, do you think it's that different today? Do you really think that we've
Yeah.
made like a huge step forward in
No,
racism and policing?
this is a different conversation to the one that we're having. We're talking about
It
the
is.
conversation.
I just popped in
No,
here
and
for this.
well, and I don't mind going on a tangent if we want to go on a tangent.
If Doghouse is
So the
cool.
question,
No, go ahead. Go ahead, because I think
Yeah.
this does tie in a little bit to what criminal justice would look like under Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. So I'm completely fine with this conversation going that way.
Well, and by the way, so Wesley, I'm not sure how familiar you are with me or my previous content or anything like that. But so for me, I probably came into the debate scene in 2019, and I am like a I would say like a center right guy. And I don't agree with all of the defund the police, this, that, the other. However, like if you ask me about like what's wrong with law enforcement, I can write you up a laundry list of things that I would absolutely change. And part of them is the spiritual violations of the Fourth Amendment, if not the actual legalistic violation of the Fourth Amendment. So for instance, like I think that there's some like New York lawyers who can legalese their way into stop and frisk being viable. But I think that if you read the Fourth Amendment, then it's pretty clear that people should be secure in their persons and papers unless there's like an articulable reason for why they should be stopped by an agent of the state. But then we get into this conversation about like, it's almost like how authoritarian versus libertarian or authoritarian versus liberal do you want your society to be? And I think that when it comes to cities, there's, I'm sorry, I'm going on so many tangents, but you asked an important question.
But I understand where you're going.
So what I'm saying is we have to ask ourselves, do we want more danger, but more freedom and to align with the principles that we supposedly wrote into our Constitution? Or do we want more security, but we want to violate the rights of our fellow citizens more aggressively? And so I think that when you're asking me like, well, is it really that different from today? I think Kamala Harris is the status quo, which you can have your criticisms of. I think Donald Trump is substantively more of a violation of the Constitution.
I agree with your last two statements. I think Kamala is 100% status quo, and does not change anything. If anything, she maybe even a little bit more regressive and conservative than Joe.
But you understand, like as a centrist or like a center right person, like you're just saying good things. I
know. This is the weird thing that I've been going through in the last like few days. I've been processing this about like Doghouse. Because Doghouse is like a good friend of mine, and Doghouse is like going towards Kamala now. And it's
I'm not going towards. I'll let you know, Wes. I'm gonna let it be known if it's not known already. I am 100% Kamala. I am a white dude for Harris. Okay, I don't care.
Exactly.
I'm all in, baby. I don't even care because I'm so.
Well, exactly. You go off. I'm gonna make a slight differentiation from myself and Doghouse, but please continue.
Well, and I guess like it's been making me think because like every day my leftist friends that I'm like close with get further and further from voting for Kamala, and almost none of us are going to vote for Kamala at this point. And people like Doghouse are going to switch from voting for Trump to voting for Kamala. And it's just like more evidence of the ratchet effect of, and like,
this is the bet. So this is the bet. I would say that if you looked at 2019, Kamala Harris, she might be like a California upper middle class progressive, but she was still a progressive, right?
She was still a cop. She was still a major liberal at that point.
Okay, but you say that, but we could find some pretty progressive clips from around 2019, and then also I'm pretty sure we found like she was tweeting out like the bond for BLM protesters like during the protests and the riots and stuff. Yeah. Like you can say that she's a cop, and by the way, based, but like there are plenty of things during that time frame that were fairly progressive. And
I think her most progressive
let him finish up real quick, and then you can
primaries, right?
Well,
sorry.
Well, yes,
but she was very progressive in the primary.
In the primaries, I do agree that her rhetoric was extremely progressive, or maybe not extremely progressive to you. It was extremely progressive to me. Let's put it that way. But what I think has happened is, one, she was picked as the running mate for Biden, so she had to moderate because I think a Biden presidency was fairly moderate. And then I also think for two, she is making a calculated political bet that there are so many Republicans who are disaffected with Trump and MAGA, especially after 2020, especially after January 6th, that if she plays for the center, she will drag away more people from the center who would have voted for Trump previously than she will lose leftists. I think that is the electoral bet she's making right now.
I completely agree. Doghouse, is it cool if I respond?
Of course, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm letting y'all go off. I was eating my dinner. Y'all go ahead.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think that is the bet that she is making. And I don't even think she's making the wrong bet because there's like not very many leftists in the country. And they're all watching Hassan's stream. None of them are.
You are spitting right now. So
None
listen,
of
like,
them are actually like paying attention to this shit. But what I'm trying to say is like, yes, she is making that bet, but that is the ratchet effect, and that's what I'm talking about. Like,
I hear you, and I understand how that would be discouraging as a leftist. I just think that so for me, I haven't I haven't heard the left talk to anything that I cared about in a half decade to a decade. I've seen the right talk about things that I care about from a policy basis, but I've also seen them increasingly lose their freaking minds and basically throw out the principles and values that brought me to the party in the first place. So if I can't identify with the fringe right, and if I can't identify with the left, having the left wing party come my way, even incrementally, right? Like, dude, I'm almost 40. I do not believe politicians. When politicians tell me something, I expect them to deliver 10% of what they're promising me. However, even seeing a political party move my way in the smallest amount is encouraging.
no, and but you are the liberal that leftists hate. Like,
Sure.
you are a liberal, and you are happy when the left-wing party, which in this country is the Democrats, which is not left-wing at all, but it's the best that we have. When they move to the right, you're happy about that, which is fine. Like, that, you're center right, so like, of course that's going to make you happy. But like, you have to understand how, like, to me, that's just completely demoralizing and destructive to like any type of leftist cause.
I feel like
The fact that
Wes,
Doghouse is going to vote for Kamala.
Okay, wait.
This season. Wait, no. Let me finish this. Like, one
Wesley,
more
I have a
sentence.
rebuttal when you're done.
Yeah,
There's like 1.5 more sentences, maybe. The fact that Doghouse is going to vote for Kamala this season is actually, it makes me like completely lose faith in anything that is leftist or truly
I'm
democratic.
sorry.
I got a thing here.
I don't want to.
Let Connor respond.
Well,
Actually, let's Ty go because you haven't spoke, and then I'll let.
I mean, this is pretty easy one. So, like, okay, so Doghouse is I still think you're a righty. You just are pissed off at MAGA, and you have every right to be.
Maybe
you're going Kamala. I know Connor has at least hinted that he's kind of flirting with the idea, although I don't know if you've actually said.
I'm going to. It's a bitter pill, but I'm going to.
Okay. Right. And I was originally planning on just staying out because I live in Indiana, but now my governor's race is actually competitive. So I'm probably showing up, and I'm probably voting for Kamala. I'm probably going to.
Kamala. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, like, I mean, you have 3 former righties or are righties who are actually going to vote for Kamala. I mean, the cat's out of the bag here at this point. Like, the point's been made.
Though?
Well, okay, but that's.
I think the real question is like, all right. This is why I'm more confident in like states like Georgia and Arizona to go blue, but I'm not confident in like Michigan because like because 2 things. Number 1, those states are having a shitload of liberals from the north flood into those states. And they're going to vote Democrat, and they're going to stay voting Democrat. I think those states are going to be like very slightly lean blue for the coming future. But like Michigan and whatnot, those are some of the states that those people are moving from. But also, if the leftists don't show up, what does Michigan look like if the leftist Arabs don't show up to the polls? Can Trump pull it off that way? Yeah, probably.
Without Dearborn, what are you going to do in Michigan?
Well,
you need Dearborn.
Connor, did you want to respond to anything? Because I know you
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
So leftist. Okay, so this is something that I get into beef all the time with my rightoid friends who call me a leftist. So when I hear the word leftist, I think socialist and communist, right?
Yeah,
so
that's what
okay. So when I hear socialist and communist, the truth is for me that I think y'all are kind of decrepit at this point, anyways. Reason being that Vosh and Hassan are the biggest creators in online politics who are out leftists. Vosh is he's a lolicon, and
Is
he's
is
a
Vosh? Wait,
he's
I
a
just
pop
want to
culture.
interrupt because
Wes, let him finish up, and then you can go. Okay.
Yeah. So Vosh, I would say, is like the second biggest guy. He's definitely the second biggest leftist. He's a lolicon pop culture commentator. He doesn't do anything leftist with his money, time, or influence. He doesn't create communes. He doesn't create like workers' cooperatives. He doesn't do any community work. He doesn't do any of that kind of crap. So boom, you already have all of the time and attention that could have been taken for leftists. You take 30 to 40% of it, and you might as well just throw it in the trash. You're pouring your money into a pop culture commentator who is capitalist in all of his actions, except for
I hear
He's not done. He's not done. Let him finish. Let Wes. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Then same thing with Hassan Piker, where Hassan Piker begrudgingly does like ostensibly leftist things, fundraisers for leftist causes or whatever, but he's cheerleading like domestic and international terrorist organizations on his stream, and he's probably going to cause the adpocalypse on Twitch, at which point he will be a social pariah for basically nuking everybody's income by 30 to 50%. So these are the leading leftist voices in online politics. So I don't see a future for you, to be honest.
All right, go ahead, Wes.
Oh my god. Okay, so no, I wanted to interrupt because like most of what you said was disparaging Bosch, and I don't know a single actual leftist who does not hate Bosch. Like, and so that's like that entire tirade that you had about how shitty Bosch was. We fucking agree with you. Like,
well, how do you feel about
hate
Hassan?
Bosch. Hassan is fine.
I would like to.
He
I would like.
he
Oh, wait, wait. I want to wait.
He messes
I wanna,
up a lot.
I want to be
of
clear because I
times.
know where this is going to go. Wes, are you okay with where this is going? Because you know where this is going to go. I want to make sure you're okay with this.
America deserved 9/11 or some shit?
No. That's not
Are
what
we
I'm
going
saying.
there?
No. Anyways, go ahead. Y'all go on. I'll let y'all go wherever it goes.
I was going to say, so I was saying that 30 to 40% of the ostensibly leftist, content on YouTube and Twitch or whatever, although I guess he doesn't stream on Twitch, right? But I think like 30% is Vosh. Well, 60 to 70% is Hassan. And Hassan is increasingly, at least in my estimation, he's flying too close to the sun. He just is.
Okay,
I agree
so
with you on
do you
that.
think he's flying too close to the sun because you don't agree with his views, or because you think that he's going to get banned for those views?
I'm going to.
I don't think he's going to get banned. I think he's going to trigger potentially a corporate financial backlash to major corporations sponsoring on Twitch. And then if that backlash occurs, a lot of people will be furious with him because Twitch, I only have half a dozen to a dozen viewers on Twitch whenever I go live, and I only go live like 2 or 3 times a week. Every single month or two, I get $50 to $100 from Twitch for doing that tiny bit of streaming. It's like 12 or 15 hours. That's a good pay to play ratio for how much. So if you're talking about me making just a tiny amount of money off of very minimal effort, there are probably people who are making thousands upon thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, who would see their checks cut by a third or half if that adpocalypse triggers.
Well, and that's the thing too, is when you were saying that, I echo this because I feel like Hassan right now, he's one of those people that this is why TOS exists, right? Is because he ends up forcing them to strict down more on the TOS. And then it puts, like you said, it puts these companies in a weird position where like, well, we don't want our ad revenue being dried up because of Hassan. So it's,
I don't keep up with this very much. And literally if it wasn't for like Connor's video this week, I wouldn't know shit. But like, here's 2 sides of this. Number one is that they consistently simp for him when he openly breaks TOS all the fucking time. And what's worse is that
wait, no. Wait,
shut up. I'm not done.
Wes.
What's worse is that you have what's this guy? Was it Asmongold? Is that what his name was? Completely go like at least 80% based, and Twitch fucking nuked him. It's like, yeah, like sooner or later these people are just going to lose all respect from anybody anyway. I think they're already there.
See, but dude, I thought the Asmongold rant was like pretty fucking unhinged.
All right, go ahead, Wes. It's your turn. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that we just let you say that he breaks TOS consistently. Can you tell me how he breaks TOS consistent?
How many fucking clips are of him literally saying shit like America deserved 9/11?
Does that break TOS?
Shit like that. Yes. Like, oh, I would hope openly sipping for terrorist organizations is literally breaking TOS.
Does that phrase break terms of service?
All right, Wes, let's not.
No. I'm serious.
I mean, look, okay, look, I'll give you to you this. If it does, if it doesn't, it's ridiculous.
I can read it right here.
Okay, you're telling me that.
No, Wes.
I can address
Wes, Connor's got
directly.
it. Connor's got it. Go ahead,
Twitch does not allow content that depicts, glorifies, encourages, or supports terrorism or violent extremist actors or acts.
Depicts,
it's right there.
Supports or glorifies.
Does saying
that America deserved 9/11 do any of those things?
I think
yes!
It does not. No,
you think
it does not.
Wait,
this is why we don't like it.
I know. Wait. Wes.
That
I
is
got because listen. This is my. I know. Hold on. This is the thing.
Yes.
First of all,
objectively wrong.
Okay, hold on. That's fine. We'll let you get that final word in because here's the thing. You're going to explain why it doesn't, which then ends up leading to us discussing why this statement is okay for TOS, even though it could be against TOS, which then could get my stream taken down. So what we're going to do is we're going to get away from this topic. What we will talk about, and I am more curious about to bring it right back in, is when we're talking about leftists, I find it really insane to me how we have diluted what it actually means to be left, okay? When we talk about Republicans have constantly, and I really want to hit on this, and this is why I'm voting, and so we're clear, why I'm voting for Kamala, is because I'm sick and, what can I say it? I'm going to say it, fucking tired of listening to all of this, where Republicans sit there and call anybody who doesn't agree with Donald Trump a rhino, a warmonger, a neocon, a leftist, or sorry, not even leftist. They don't even give you the decency of liberalism, okay? Liberal isn't even their vocabulary. They call you a communist and a Marxist and a socialist. They don't even mention liberal.
Dude, we're literally...
libtard is out of date.
Yeah, like, so Doghouse, I get where you're frustrated because I know me and Connor share those frustrations with you, but there's also a level where it's like, it's really weird where the coin's kind of flipped where over the last 6 to 2 years, we are literally now at a point where with the Republicans where the Democrats were, where I wasn't welcome to be remotely Democrat because I'm a straight white dude and fuck you. Like literally the shoe's on the other foot now.
Now they're making commercials for you.
Yeah.
They're making fucking commercials. They're like, please God, come back. It's so close. It's so close. Please, white men. Please, straight white men. Please come back. Dude, I'm not kidding. That was
I listened to these fuckers for 6 years tell me how shit I was. And it literally took abortion getting fucking nuked before they're like, oh, we're being a bunch of dumbasses. And now now the Republicans are. It is hilarious. It is hilarious. It is ridiculous. But now I'm watching Republicans do it, and I'm kind of waiting for it's like when does the pin drop here? Because the one thing I want to fight Connor.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, look, I can't wait either. But the one thing I do want to fight you on, and we probably don't have the time, is that I don't think this just ends after this election because, MAGA's taking this shit to a whole nother level. Like, they're down the fucking rabbit hole, and they believe some wild-ass fucking shit, and they don't just double down. They quadruple down, dude. Like, even if Trump goes, I think they're going to kingmaker somebody who's just as retarded. Like, I don't know if it'll probably be somebody we've never... I don't think it'll be anybody we've actually talked to or heard of, to be completely honest. But even if it is...
Sorry for interrupting.
Even if it is one of these fucking retards, right? Like, the problem is like... There's no brakes on this fucking train. The Trump train don't have brakes.
It will if they take a second loss. And so for me, my perspective, what's necessary? Because people ask me, they're like, do you agree with Kamala on 70% of the shit she says? And the answer is no, I don't. I literally just want a competent person who respects the rule of law, who isn't interested in, subverting the Constitution, who also by the way, there are just some. If you talk to me about Trump policy, there's a strong chance that I agree with it in the general, right? Secure the border. I agree with secure the border in general. If you talk about don't take millions of people from overseas who potentially could be from the Middle East and North Africa and potentially could be jihadist terrorists. Okay, I agree with that. But when you get into the specific policy is dog shit and often counterproductive. And so what's happening is I think MAGA is so dumb that MAGA needs to take a punch to the face to have a broken nose, and then after they
In
get their broken
Minecraft.
nose for the second time, well, metaphorically, I don't expect anybody to actually get punched, but for this, once they have a political broken nose and they're like, oh, I told all the moderate right wingers, and I told all the neocons, and I told all the social conservatives, and I told all the fiscal conservatives to fuck off, but it turns out I can't do this alone. Therefore, I need to appeal to their interest and their policy interest as well. Then at that point, if they're 55% of the party, but we can negotiate like legislative priority, then we could build like a relatively sane Republican Party. But when they're saying it's either our way or the highway, it's the fucking highway. Fuck you. Like my vote is not going to be held hostage for dog shit policy. And also, by the way, sorry, real quick, Republican is the root word of the party that I give a shit about. If you don't care about the concepts of Republicanism, then you don't earn my vote, period.
Go ahead, Wes. We've been talking for a little bit. I want Wes to be able to jump in because
I just want to say that, like, yeah, they honestly, like, the leftists feel the same way about voting for fucking Kamala. Like, if there are any leftists voting for Kamala, they are holding their nose and doing it out of like
Trump's
pure.
worse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, to a leftist, Trump is worse, but that, like, I don't know.
It's a
it's hard
distinction without a difference
thing.
to you guys.
Well, Wesley.
Yeah,
sorry,
to a leftist, it is a distinction without a difference.
Well,
Like,
Wesley. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that I would say to the three leftists that are in the audience. But the thing is, like, listen. If Trump actually got done what he wanted to get done, which, by the way, he's probably not, but let's just pretend for a second that he can implement his policy agenda. You're talking about taking 20 million economically productive people who are 99% probably decent people, and you're talking about shipping them to Central and South America because fuck them, they don't belong here. Okay? There's nothing leftist about that. When you're talking, hold on. And then when you're talking about, hold on, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. There's two other points.
Let him finish and then you can go.
Okay. Then the other thing too, this is something that I care about. When it comes to Israel, Donald Trump will give Netanyahu and the Israeli government carte blanche to do whatever they want. At least the Democrats will pretend to have some leverage to reel Israel in, whereas fucking Donald Trump just straight up says, he's like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Turn Gaza into a fucking parking lot. Fuck those people. He says that shit out loud. And then the third thing too is Ukraine and Russia. There is nothing leftist about letting Russia be like neo-imperialist into Ukraine. So if you're a leftist, there's at least 3 trolley situations that you can have an impact on.
All right, Wes. I know this is your bread and butter. Go ahead, Wes.
There are several things, and I might remember like 2 of the things you talked about at best. But right now, like the Israel thing, I agree with you. Like, Donald Trump is going to give Bibi Netanyahu like free reign and a blank check to do whatever he wants, and that's.
He's already been in conversation. He's already been in conversation so far with Netanyahu, which is questionable.
No. I think there was even a news story. I could just be making shit up, but I don't think so. But I think that Bibi Netanyahu stopped responding to correspondence from the Biden administration. And I think he's literally waiting to see whether or not.
And one of the
go ahead, Wes. I interrupted you, Wes. Go ahead.
One of the most telling things you could go for is if you look at the what Israeli hopes, or what Israel hopes that we do. It's like 80% hope that we elect Donald Trump, and the rest of the world hopes that we elect Kamala Harris. Yep. They're literally the only country in the world that hopes that we elect Donald Trump by like a large margin. But that's, neither here nor there, because
it's not because they think that Donald Trump isn't good for the world or good for leadership. It's just because Donald Trump will give them a blank check to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yes, exactly. Like it's just because they know that in particular for Bibi and Israel, Donald Trump will do whatever they want. But like, I think that gap is closing because most people are realizing that Kamala Harris will do whatever for Bibi Netanyahu. and like to further Israel's narrative and objective. So like
Yeah.
I don't think that, and that's one of the reasons we can have, I know Doghouse, we probably agree on like a lot of things when it comes to like
Sure.
unions and shit, but like
Yeah.
when it comes to foreign affairs, like both parties right now are going to support Bibi Netanyahu, and they both love him.
I don't know about love. I think with Democrats, it's at least through gritted teeth.
Yes, and that was the second thing I wanted to talk about. I think is that you were talking about how there will be some Democratic voters that do this because they can, or because that's like all they can do, and I agree. And my thinking on that again, just like before, is that I think that's a bad. Like I think it's horrible.
Of course. No, I literally, we're coming at this from two different directions where we hate the system in similar ways, but for different directions. I like the Winston Churchill quote that is like, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other ones. Yeah. So no, there are so many things that I think are wrong with modern day politics, the way that politicians appeal to the populist masses, the way that we talk about economics, whether or not we go for meritocratically intelligent people. There are so many things wrong with our system. But then I look at a lot of the other systems and I'm like, on the whole, by comparison, we're doing okay. Like that's all I have as a consolation.
So I want to say this real quick. I want to jump in. I'm going to drag in Socrates, but I want to mention this. I'm about to get in trouble by my wife. Okay, and let me put it this way.
We can wrap
I love
up in
you
10
guys.
minutes.
Yeah, we're wrapping up in 10 minutes. So I'm going to bring Socrates in. It's going to be a quick 10, 20 minutes, and then we'll start wrapping things up. We'll start in 10 or 20 minutes. Socrates, welcome into the Political Compass Show. Long time no see. If we could get Touring in here, it would be like a throwback Thursday. It'd be freaking amazing.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
He was in my chat. I don't know if he's still watching.
Touring's my boy.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you knew Touring. Yeah, Touring is in the chat. He was. If Touring wants to hop in,
Touring
he's more
came
than welcome
up to
to.
Cleveland.
Oh no shit. Yeah, I know he did a lot of things. But anyways, we got 10 or 20 minutes. Let's make the most of it. Because, and listen, guys, if you're not following us or any of us on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, definitely Twitter. Okay, I got the spicy takes on Twitter. Please make sure you hit that follow button at the very least. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Anyways, let's jump into Socrates. Welcome in, buddy. You are now in the debate.
Thank you.
You are in the Political Compass Show. What did you want to talk about? I wanted you to get a chance to get your word in.
Well, yeah, I heard you guys talking about, what would a leftist think. So I figured as a resident leftist, I can come into
the one of three. Excellent.
There you go.
I'm there. I got some backup.
First of all, Connor fucking nailed it with, pretty much everything. When it comes to, dude, I can't stand the fucking leftists who want to sit out. They're like, oh, we can't sit by while Israel's being destroyed by Kamala's policies, and you're like,
oh, so you're not a leftist.
so you really like Trump? It's like, what do you mean? He moved the fucking capital to Jerusalem. Like, are you people fucking serious? Are you kidding me? Like, I get it that sure, but like, don't be fucking idiots. Come on. I have some ability. So when I think about like what a candidate says, there's what they really believe and what they'll do, and there's like what they're gonna say generally. I like it when Kamala gets up on the debate stage and she says, I'm the biggest friend of Israel. I love Israel. Fellatio, whatever. Like, that's what I want to hear. Because I want her to get elected. Maybe she'll do leftist stuff. I don't know. We can certainly bully her more into doing stuff than we can bully Trump into doing the right thing. So, I want her to say the things that are going to make him more electable so she can do better stuff than someone who's terrible.
And correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people were very skeptical about whether or not Biden would do anything like left of center. Whereas I'm pretty sure that like He was super aggressive about college student loan forgiveness. And then I'm also pretty sure that a lot of people were talking smack about him, and a lot of people were praising him for being one of the most pro-union presidents that we've had in like
He
decades.
has been.
And like I don't pay.
What? No, are you? Oh
Fucking
my
CHIPS
god,
Act.
you are the furthest person from. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
What?
Wes. Go ahead, Wes.
You are not a leftist. If you think Joe Biden is a pro-union president and that Kamala is the good choice here,
But the choice over who? The choice is
Compared to
between two
what?
things.
the choice
At least
is
two
between
things.
three things. I'm going to vote down ballot and not put my name next to Kamala Harris because I won't put my name next to a genocide.
This is
You
America.
will,
You
and
could vote however you want.
No, that's totally fine. But you can't say that you don't know.
Don't know
you are
what?
what you're putting your name next to.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
we're
like-
evaluating the lesser of two evils, and we're picking the lesser of two evils.
yeah. So I know who's
That's
getting
cool.
elected if it's
That's-
not Kamala, right? We all know that, right? There's only right.
Well, so hold on. So I want to make this point. You understand there are sincerely principled things that I care about that the Democrats are against. Okay, so when it comes to like the Twitter files are a big deal to me. I get it. It's not a lot of lefties like laugh about it or whatever. But the federal government working with social media companies in order to influence the way that people can talk and paying non-governmental organizations to report terms of service violators to social media companies to get them banned. For me, that is like a spiritual violation of the First Amendment, and it's creepy that the federal government thought that was an appropriate use of its time, energy, and resources. That's fucking creepy. When it comes to the Second Amendment, Tim Walton, Kamala Harris are like, oh, I'm a gun owner, I'm a gun owner, I'm a gun owner. But then whenever you look at their policy, they're like, oh yeah, assault weapons ban, emergency red flag laws, which by the way I do support, but it's okay. That's a very nuanced topic. And then also like all these like things that I don't think actually solve any of the problems they're trying to address. And if anything, they just punish gun owners. Then when it comes to the economy or whatever, like I want money to go to first-time homeowners and I want small businesses to start. However, demand for housing is already white hot. So attacking it from a demand side by giving $25,000 to people to buy houses or whatever, for me, just feels like bad policy.
Fucking
And then same thing.
based.
And then capital gains, the
But
capital
there's
tax,
just
real quick,
supply side
can I-
taxes
too,
on
because
unrealized
she-
capital gains is pretty much like antithetical to what I believe about economics. So anyways, so here's like half a dozen policies that are completely antithetical to what I believe about economics, firearms, government intrusion into the thoughts of its citizens or whatever. But for me, Democrats will chip away at my rights, whereas Donald Trump is attacking the core of what I believe in. And so I have to make a choice betwin these two things.
I do want to. I
What
want to
don't
jump in,
like-
hold on, Wes. I want to jump in real quick because I haven't had a chance to really jump in like for the past 20 minutes. I want to mention the Kamala Harris has addressed the supply side of housing, I believe, by giving subsidies to home builders to try to help.
It was like 3 million, but the
Yeah.
my problem with like 3 million units, which like by the way, people have pointed out that like a unit can technically house more than one person, so you shouldn't count it as just 3 million people.
Sure.
I understand that. However, for me, 3 million, considering where housing is right now, it just feels like it feels like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
Bucket,
that's
yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead,
No,
Wes.
I mean-
I interrupted Wes. I want to let Wes go. Go ahead, Wes.
No, but I just wanted to say I was gonna add the point about the 3 million
Okay.
housing units added over the next few years, because that is attacking the supply side rather than the just the demand side. So like there is something going on there as well, but also like I want to argue again against the idea that like voting Kamala is like the progressive choice.
It's not. Well, just say it's the liberal choice, but it's the lesser of two
Yeah.
evils.
I'll be a liberal for a day and vote for Kamala.
Okay, and hold on. Actually, I want to make a point just because I haven't had enough time to like stream recently, so it's been a while since I've been in a room with
Absolutely,
other
man.
people
Go
who think
ahead.
about politics. So for me though, like this is not the kind of leadership
Oh,
that I want to see. Sorry, who is that? Who is it?
What
Tell me.
Tory
Tory
News,
News.
baby.
Man.
Doreen, it's the
Damn.
reunion.
All right, we're
All right,
going
hold
at
on.
it tonight, boys. Screw it. Go ahead.
All right, hold on. Let me finish my rant.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for me, the Democrats are always talking about, and by the way, like I just got hit by back-to-back hurricanes, so my ears are a little open on the risks of weather-related exacerbated climate events, right? So, anyways, the point is, like, I want to hear like real solutions. Like, we're going to design communities where, yeah, you can still own a car, but you're going to be walking 70% of the time because we put your house next to your job, next to your entertainment place, and you're basically living
Mixed
on
zoning.
an apartment complex like that's next to a mall, and the mall has office buildings built into it. So you're not even going to miss, like, you're not even going to miss having a car because you can go to the Jamba Juice on your way to the office, on the way to, after school, you take your kid to Dave and Buster's, and you never set foot in a fucking car. That's the kind of shit that I want to hear from politicians, but no one on the left fucking talks about that shit either.
Wait. 90% of homeowners hate it.
No,
like,
but
unironically, they
people-
don't want it. They want to live in suburbia. Like, they want their car. They want to live in suburbia. They want to drive 15 minutes to go to the store.
But, go ahead. Hold on. I want Wes to kind of jump in here because Wes was about to say something. He got it.
So,
go ahead.
Live in a
I
shitty city that
agree.
nobody cares about, like Detroit.
There you go. All right, go, Wes.
Nobody cares about. Okay, so
I'll
and
happily go into that later.
Tiberius said that you do have that. Is that what you were saying, Tiberius? I don't want to
No,
cut
he
you
was
off too
saying that
much.
90% of homeowners don't want to go for that. They
They
don't want
want to.
they don't want to buy a condo or an apartment with a bunch of neighbors. They want to live in the
They don't.
quarter
they don't want
acre,
They-
1,500 square foot house.
Torin, feel
Literally,
free
like,
to jump in at any point,
the
buddy.
vast-
It's going miles an hour, buddy. So jump in at whenever
Yeah,
you want.
the vast
So,
majority of people want to
no.
live in houses that, like, literally me and Connor live in. The
Okay.
problem.
I
hear
never
you.
got my chance here.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify.
Make the
what
box
people were
for the
saying.
leftists.
No,
I
I do
mean,
think
the
that
box.
there's a huge
I
amount
sent
of
you
people.
pictures of the
that-
colony in
that
Texas,
want
right? They're trying, but
affordable-
it sucks. It's failing.
There are a lot of people that want affordable living and want to be able to do all of their things without owning a car and being able to move through public transportation and through walking. Like, there are a lot of people that want 15-minute cities. And if you are not a part of people who want 15-minute cities, that's fine. Like, go live in your rural areas, go do your thing. But like, there are so many people that want to be able to just like walk through their city and get most of the stuff they need and like pick up their groceries on the way home from work. And like, there's
I'm gonna need a source on the colony failing.
Yeah, the long and the short here is, like, it's not hard for them to get people who are middle class and rich into these places. The problem is they're having hell of a time getting people who are working class into these places. The long and short here is they're trying to charge at minimum like $800 rent for like a place that's 300 square feet, and people are just like, "Fuck that! I'm not doing it. I'll drive 30 minutes if I have to."
Sure.
That's
No,
but,
but
that's not a failure of the system. That's not a failure of the city. That's a failure of the system. Like,
Well, in
fact that
Tiberius,
you-
I would say that that's probably, I would say, a design issue, right? So if I can get for $2,000 a month, which, by the way, this is very low compared to current market prices, but let's say for $2,000 a month, I can get a 1,500 square foot house, and I can get a car and all that kind of stuff, and I can have my family. But then for $3,000 a month, I can have a 1,500 square foot apartment that I shove 5 people or 4 people into, and then there's no common area immediately outside, like a yard to play in or a place to walk my dog or a dog park or something like that. For me, that's not like a failure of economics or a failure of it's a failure in design, because like you should design the place where it's you attract the kind of people you want.
Torin, go.
I
go
agree
hold
that-
on,
wait,
hold on,
wait.
hold on.
I
I'm the
agree
host.
that-
I'm the
Yeah.
damn host. Hold on. We got a whole bunch of people in here, and I really want Torin news.
You let them in.
I did. I let the chaos all in, and I really want Torin to say something. So go ahead, Torin.
Okay.
Say your
Just hi. It's nice to see a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a while. I mean, I've met a few of these people, even in IRL and so forth. Well, the one thing that I wanted to, from many topics ago, just quickly say was like, I would love either party, and I mentioned this in in the Doghouses chat, to have an honest discussion, and maybe I'll even go like in the hyperbolic way that Twitch usually goes. We talk about reparations, for slavery and things the U.S. did. I don't think that we need to necessarily use the word reparations for Latin, Central, and South America, but the amount of overthrowing of governments, of destabilizing regimes, of meddling that we did kind of in this region is the direct reason that there are so many people trying to get out of this area of the world and into somewhere better. And no one in anywhere that I've seen in any kind of like mainstream areas tries to even have this as like any kind of a discussion, because it would be culpability for both sides of trying to say like, oh yeah, like some things that we tried to democracy build did or did not work, and this is like the cost. But I know that we're beyond that one, so
It's
I did
okay,
put something.
buddy. Yeah. Good.
But I did
Well,
put something into the debate text.
You're not gonna like my acknowledgement of that scenario. So, but sorry,
I'm
continue.
going to complete.
Continue, yeah.
completely
Well,
push back.
let Torin continue. Yeah, let Torin
It'll be
continue.
another. But you were talking about 10-minute cities and so forth. So I just saw this on Twitter. I haven't done like a ton of deep diving into it, but the way that I'm reading it is there's 1,300 people that came together to try to build like this temporary pop-up city somewhere in California. They did it for an entire month in June. And now it seems like they're actually trying to purchase, or they have purchased, or are in the process of getting like a plot of land to kind of try to build, I guess, like, another shot of utopia, or so forth. But it just felt pertinent to the discussion that people were having, where this one actually kind of looks like it's family friendly. It looks like they are trying to build, like your 15-minute here or so forth. And if we want 15-minute cities, we can all move to the line in Saudi Arabia to be the meme and give it back to other people.
Well, Torian, so I want to acknowledge the land on which my ancestors stole from the Seminole tribe, but then I want to say that we should do more of it, like Central and South America. Like, I want to create the greater United States of the Americas. Okay. I want South America. I want Brazil, Chile, Peru, all those places to unify into a Southern United States of America and become like an economic and cultural trade hub. I want the Central United States of America. That's like Mexico and all those countries. And honestly, I wouldn't care if Canada, Mexico, if we basically created a socio-political polity that stretched from Canada all the way down to the Panama Canal. Because right now, what's really going on is the United States is anxious about the lawlessness and violence that's in Central America, but it doesn't seem like Central Americans have the capacity to deal with cartels in the way that they need to be dealt with. And of course, you need to deal with them like economically, you need to give people opportunities, jobs, et cetera, but you also need a non-corrupt security force that aggressively goes after violent factions. And so for whatever reason, I think that the current trajectory we're on is just let Central America be a failed zone for centuries. Whereas I don't think we should do that. I think we should bite the bullet.
Let Tiberius go.
Here's the problem. Like, literally, the reason why that is now the kind of the active policy is either sink or swim, and we'll deal with you on that basis, like Colombia, is because of the criticism that Touring threw it, where it's like, oh, well, we get involved when we overthrow governments or we pick sides. And it's like, well, we pick sides to try to make the better people. We get our asses chewed out anytime that we pick sides. So fuck it, sink or swim, bitch. We don't care anymore.
We've never made.
Let Torin reply, because this is both of those were kind of directed at him. So go ahead, Torin.
Oh, I appreciate it. I think that if we just even came out and said like, hey, we made some mistakes and we don't exactly know what the best step forward is, but we just want to let you know that like now that we're looking at just like some text and so forth, that like, oh, okay, we screwed up there. What can we do for you all? Maybe put like a poll out to the citizenry. I don't exactly know what the answer is, but I've never even heard the dialogue kind of even opened in that type of lens or framing before.
Go ahead, Socrates. You're next.
Yeah, so just, I mean, look, this is not a strong point of history for me, so I'll offer an unfounded take, and you guys can say how full of shit I am. But isn't it the case that we've supported a number of like dictators over just communists?
You could say that we had a dictator in office for like 4 years under the name Trump, but that's a whole other conversation.
No, okay. What he's obviously referring to is, come on, what I can see Pinochet. So Pinochet, and then also
we did it in Nicaragua when we funded the FARC.
Yeah. So
I mean, we overthrew with the Chiquita Bananas. I mean, like the name Banana Republic comes from.
If there was a left-wing death squad and a right-wing death squad, and they were both involved in narcotics trafficking, we would claim that we were doing counter-narcotics operations, but we would support the right-wing death squad.
Yeah.
Well, we would support both, but maybe the right a little more.
There you go. Well, hey guys,
weapon sales or weapon sales?
we're getting close to wrapping up, and what I want is we have a lot of people coming in here. This is like the most old school Twitch panel that I've seen. I am so happy, but it's also so late and nobody's gonna see it, but it's okay. Everyone who's seen it now is awesome. But anyways, let's go ahead. Let's start wrapping it up. I just want to kind of go back to where our beginning was, which was the state of politics. We have two new people in here. I definitely want to get their state of politics and where we're going as we wrap up, and that'll be our kind of final message. Let's start with CounterPoints. CounterPoints, give us kind of your final message on what you want to do with your outro. Let us know what your take is as your final thoughts on the state of politics.
Yeah, if you're a politically homeless individual, if you're center right, moderate, whatever, like me, I would urge you to. I'm not telling you to do anything, but I would urge you to not vote for Trump. The only reason being is because this man has done so many things that are antithetical to republicanism, liberalism, the American experiment, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can't vote for Kamala, I get it. But I just would say don't vote against your principles fundamentally just to trigger the libs, right? When it comes to voting for Kamala, I'm not voting for Kamala. I'm voting against Trump. I actually do think that January 6th was pretty serious. I do think that some of his statements about suspending the Constitution were pretty serious. And they actually cut to the core of what I believe about this country. So if he were to get everything that he wanted, this wouldn't be the country that I was raised to support and believe in. And therefore, I would actually stop supporting the United States of America because I would view it as an evil and broken institution. As far as like, if you wanted to come check me out, then CounterPoints 40K, I have a Warhammer channel. It's doing very well. Counterfire, not as much, but I am posting almost daily political content, just 10-minute commentary snippets, and some of them are catching fire and some of them aren't. So if you want to help be a part of that project, then please check that out as well. Thank you for
definitely go give CounterPoints a view. Socrates, OG Twitch. Go ahead, Socrates. Give us your little take on the final thoughts. It feels like it, man. It feels like it. It's great. Go ahead, give us your thoughts on this state of politics and the way things are going, and shout yourself out a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Socrates. Come check me out on Twitch, Socrates TV, also on YouTube, Real Socrates. So what we've had in the last few years is we've had this kind of catastrophe of Trump, but the best possible case of what could have come along with that, I think, is happening, where this is kind of the newer generations like 9/11 and Afghanistan war and Iraq war, and seeing like politics actually does matter. Electoral politics matters. All politics matters. You kind of need to be involved to actually make a difference. Things don't just get worse for no reason, but things definitely also don't get better for no reason. You have to be politically engaged. Sometimes you have to hold your nose and stop being holier than thou for a little bit and vote for somebody that can make things better, because we want to live in a better world and not a worse world. Good things are good, actually, right? So Noam Chomsky put this really well, where he said, voting takes like 10 minutes to decide who you're going to vote for. You vote for them on that day. And then every other day of the year, and even later on that day, you agitate for the things that you care about. You protest. You write your senators and congresspeople. You form coalitions. You try to, have group education things where you share ideas and you try to build coalitions. So I see a little bit of that actually forming. I see like all these unions forming at Amazon plants. I think there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. I don't think anybody should just be doomer about the world. If for no other reason, then we can't really afford to be, because we have real challenges that are happening. Climate change, nuclear proliferation, economics, everything. We really do need to be engaged. So
absolutely. All right, y'all go check.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Y'all go check out Socrates. Tory News, man. It has been.
I've been away from politics for a while. I've just been in the fields. I really agreed, though, with what Socrates said about how it's 10 minutes of one day, or maybe sometimes like 3.5 hours, depending how long your polling lines are. But
just don't give out water. Water's no go. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're not. But no, it subsumed all of our time, and I'm bummed out that it is. Like it is kind of that way. It's almost like a lament that like it has sucked so much of our energy, doubling down on this or defending that or so forth, when we could just be doing what you're talking about, Socrates, like fighting for causes, that we like or so forth. I'm fortunate that I maybe get to just focus on some things that are important to me and step away from the national things a bit. However, I do live in Pennsylvania, and I've this is going to be. I feel like did anybody remember Michael Crabtree and that Texas Tech catch on the sidelines in college football a long time ago?
Sorry.
Oh man, how am I the sports guy that remembers American football? And Connor is voting for Kamala, and I'm bringing up college football references. It's just well, anyway. But no, for a long time, I felt that Pennsylvania. I mean, it's called the Keystone State. I'm very proud of a lot of what we've had in Pennsylvania. We had coal, we had steel. There is fracking now. Oil was there. There are reports and so forth. But when I see how everybody, I mean, Elon is in PA all the time. Kamala's there. Trump is. It's man, I go back to Pennsylvania on November 3rd. I've been away for the entire year, and it is just going to be. I cannot wait to walk into Dorco's bar the night before the election, and just hear what that 86% red town is like. I mean, it's just. I'm a spectator at this moment, and I appreciate you all allowing me to be here.
Man. Absolutely, buddy. I appreciate you coming in. Hey, when I saw you coming in, I'm like, I gotta bring Torian in.
And the quick thing for me is, I'll be 30 seconds on this. I ordered the Meta AI smart glasses, and I've been an organic farmer for a long time now, and they have a front-facing camera. So I really intend on making a lot of YouTube short content of how to harvest chard, what to look for, what's wrong if you see this kind of discoloration, on your plants or so forth. And I think it's really been the technological kind of like break and boon that I've been looking, because I've never understood how to deliver farming content or labor content or so forth. And actually, if you're anybody out there that does plumbing, construction, roofing, flooring, tiling, building, sawmill, anything like that, I really think that if you want to get into the YouTube short game, the camera that I bought, it's $379. It has like browser functionality, with being able to do like holographic Windows display for yourself and so forth. But if you want to begin to like teach people how to relearn the trades again, I think that there's a huge opportunity for you and us out there.
Absolutely. And guys, I want to make a huge shout out to Tory News is one of the OG get out and actually do what you preach online. Okay. If nobody knows about Tory News. This man was one of the first ones I knew to actually go out, along with IRI and Dylan Burns, to actually go out and put their penny where their mouth is, something like that. I'm just too late. I'm losing
Their
my
work
mind.
where their mouth was. All right.
Put their work where their mouth is. There you go. Whatever. Tiberius, go ahead. Give us a little bit of an update.
I'm kind of a different situation than these guys are. I used to really care about politics, and while there's a level in my heart that I still do, I have to come to the realization that I have to let go of this shit. Because straight up, I want to see the politics of the newsroom and the West Wing, where we can actually talk about high-minded ideals, where there is legitimate differences between Republicans and Democrats, but we're not like literally having to call each other traitors. But the reality is that that's not what we have. We have Parks and Recreation politics. This is what we've devolved into, sensationalized politics. And if you guys like it, great. But this shit's going to give me a fucking hernia. Like, I can't do this anymore. So, like, I'm happy to come and chat if you guys want to invite me on your panels or whatever. But if you're looking for a debate, bro, like, if I'm debating against hippie Jesus or synth, I'm going to fucking leave. And if you're just out to fucking, if you guys are just out to, like just do the political haymaking of like, oh, well, Trump's doing the whole border wall thing and he's going to have Mexico pay for it. No, it's bullshit. And I'm not here for it either. So like, yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let's, Torian, we'll get in after that. Let's Tiberius finish.
I'm just a fucking middle class dude working my 65 hours a week to get my shit fucking cleared out. I've got a little time that I can spend to give you guys some of my energy and my point of view. And if you want it, great. But if you're just looking for theatrics, get fucked and stay fucked. I have better things to do with my life.
All right, Wes, go ahead, and then I will wrap up everybody. And then Torian, you guys can sit there and chat for a minute. Wes, go ahead, tell us your outro and what you think the final thoughts are on the state of the politics.
I guess I'm the furthest left probably on this this little podcast. I don't know. I think that it's still worth withholding your vote against Kamala Harris if you have any care about the Palestinians. Then you should vote down ballot on every issue and not Kamala Harris because she's clearly signaled that she's going to do the exact same thing that Joe Brandon is doing. So I'm not a fan of her. I'm not a fan of voting for the president. But I do think that there is a lot of truth to saying it was like William Wilberforce that said you may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you didn't know. And I think there's a lot to that. And when it comes to the genocide in Palestine that we're all witnessing, you really can't say that you didn't know anymore. All that being said, and completely regardless, touring, I appreciate the work that you did in Cleveland. I appreciate you coming out here and doing that community garden building. I stopped by there, and I fucking love what y'all were doing, and I appreciate that. But that's, again, neither here nor there. That's all.
All right, perfect.
Don't find me anywhere.
Yeah, there you go. Wes literally doesn't want to be found. No, so I'll give y'all my final thoughts on this as we wrap it up. Here's the thing, guys. I can't say this and stress this enough. Get out and vote. That's what this comes down to. This is a very, very tight race. If you are kind of meandering on whether or not you should vote, just vote. As you heard from Wes, you could vote down ballot. You could vote for the president. The reality is that this race is going to be as tight as ever. I personally think that Kamala Harris is the best candidate. Yes, a Republican for Harris. Okay, a white dude for Harris. Yes, okay. All of the above. I am all for it. You know why? Because I am tired of seeing MAGA taking over the Republican Party. It is the absolute brainless movement. There is literally no thought that goes into it. All you have to do is kiss the ring and you are good to go. It is a terrible movement to really follow. You should vote for Kamala Harris for a whole bunch of her policies. But if you just don't, here's the thing. If you vote independent, there's a lot of thoughts about throwing away your vote. Think about this. Well, if you don't like Trump and you decide I'm going to vote independent, you're voting for Trump, because guess what? A vote for independent is just going to help benefit Trump in the end of it all, because now you're not even really voting for Kamala. You're just kind of staying neutral. Senate races are going to be big. I see it being a split Congress unless there is a silent Republican majority out there. There is a MAGA is a cultural parasite that if you don't support them, you get a social pariah. You get the scarlet A on your back. I think there's going to be a huge Republican turnout that maybe in the polls stated that they were voting for Trump, but in reality, they did that because their parents are behind them listening to their conversation with the pollster on the phone. Okay. I think that reality is you're going to have a large majority of Republicans coming out. So anyways, this is the Political Compass. I appreciate every single one of our guests that came on. This was probably the best OG Twitch panel I can get, short of a few guests, okay? Demon Machine would have been great to have in here. Demon Machine missed a great show. But I want to thank all of our guests on this show. Please make sure you go follow them, like, subscribe, turn on notification bells and all that things there. And I see Geek with Glasses in the chat. Anyways, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you.